Well, welcome to another class, Spiritual Boot Camp. I'm really excited about this class. We're calling it Think. And let me tell you what I'm talking about here. Let's just say you're you're someplace and a communicator stands up. This guy is trying to share with you, and this guy or gal, and they're not very attractive. They've got a lisp. They're looking down. They're not a very good communicator. They've got some graphics that are not done very well. Whatever they're trying to sell us, you know what? We are not buying, right? Then the second person that comes up, well, you know what? This person is very attractive. And this person is fun, and they got a great smile, and they're connecting with us, and they got great eye contact. And you know what? When what they're selling us, we're thinking looks pretty good. We're getting ready to buy it. The deal is, bottom line is, people in this life that we come in contact with often are selling ideas. And if somebody is selling their idea, trying to persuade you to go the direction they are, they're not very attractive. They're not very fun. Their volume is messed up in their speech. They've got some idiosyncrasies. You know what? We're not interested in their idea. Meanwhile, if someone comes up to share their idea and they are fun and they've got a great smile and they're attractive and they're looking at you and they're just really doing a great job in communicating, we often will buy it. And especially if what they say is what we want. And especially if what they say, other people are buying it as well. Now, the message, the content may be all out to lunch, but that's irrelevant. And so here's the deal for us. We want to be people who recognize that you and I are persuadable people. We can be influenced by an individual's looks and their demeanor and their communication style and their graphics. But we don't want to judge the message by the medium. You know what I'm saying? We want to be able to be people who stop and listen to the message regardless of the communicator and ask questions about it. Is this true? Yeah, I hear what they're saying, but is this legitimate? Is this been verified? Is this correct? We want to be people who think, that we don't just buy based on the communicator. That's what happened in Nazi Germany with the people falling for Hitler's tactics. But we want to be people who judge based on the message itself. We want to think. And so that's what this class is going to be about. We're going to be looking deeply at that and hopefully becoming people who are thinkers, who love the Lord our God with all of our mind as well as our heart. And that's not as common as you might think. And so I'm glad you're in this class. It's going to be a good class. It's unlike any class we've ever done. We've never done this class before. And so your perspective on it will be very helpful as we try to review and make this better for future classes. But what you need to do, let me pray for us, and then you're going to need to secure your notebook. If you did not receive a notebook with the notes for this first class, this video is really not going to do you a whole lot of good. So you'll really want to secure that. But let me pray for us first, okay? Because God, we do want to be people who love you with our mind. We don't want to be people who are led to and fro. We don't want to be people who are simply persuaded by our emotions or by physical appearance. God, would you give us such a mind? Would you help us learn how to be people who discern, not just people who fall prey to the marketers? And so I pray, Lord, for this class on the front end of it, that you would do that when we get done, we would have more biblical worldview than we do now. I would pray that would be so. Guide us even in this class, I pray, God, in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, if you've got your notebook, listen, I'm going to spend just a couple of minutes, and I don't have this on the slides, on the screen, and so you're going to need to look at your notebook. And you notice it's going to say, the very first page, how are you going to pass boot camp this semester? Well, there's 3 things that you need to do to pass boot camp this semester. The first thing are our quizzes. We will have a quiz just about every single week. If you've been in boot camp before, you know how this works. You know it's true that the quizzes, all of the questions on the quizzes come directly from the notes from the previous week. Okay? So if we're in week 2, all of the notes that we had for week 1, that's what the quiz will be on. Now, while I'm teaching, I may say something incredibly profound, wonderful, mind you, but if it's not typed into those notes, don't worry about it. It will not be on the quiz. So the way I would study is I would take like 10 minutes every night and just look over my notes, read them through. As you remember, while I'm teaching, if I said something and I really emphasized it and I think that's really important, you want to star it or something. If in the notes it says like 3 reasons for this or 4 elements of that, I'm going to memorize those 3 or those 4 things because that might show up on the quiz. Not guaranteed, but it certainly could. So quizzes will be key. You got to get a 70% at least on them. Number 2, videos. This is an interesting class because there's 0 reading in this class, 0 worksheets in this class. The only homework is you will have to watch some videos. And most of them are very entertaining and really just a few minutes long. But then you need to report on them. So let's look at the deal, at your notes. And if you do, you notice it says deadline, real important. Your work is due on the date listed in the syllabus. A 2-week grace period is offered. In other words, you can be up to 2 weeks late. After that, no work will be accepted without permission from our spiritual boot camp coordinator. So stay on it. If you let yourself get behind, it's going to snowball quickly. Every once in a while, some folk do this. They just let it pile up. Don't do that. You'll hurt yourself, and the spiritual boot camp coordinator may not accept your work. So get it all in on the time. Now notice, if you are a freshman or sophomore, each week you will watch multiple short videos. I mean, like 3-minute videos. They're not real long. While you must watch all of the freshman, sophomore videos, you only need to pick 1 to write your report on. So you get that? If there's 3-minute videos, you need to watch them all, but you only have to write a report on 1 of them. Any one you choose, okay? Any one you choose. Your report will include a short paragraph that rehashes the big points of the video. Your paragraph should include multiple sentences. I'm guessing it should be about 1/2 page of content. It should never go beyond 1 page. If you are typing and this thing's going beyond 1 page, you've got too much material. Don't worry about that. Every video report, if you're looking at your notes, needs to include the following header, where you just fill this out, what video you watched, what your name is. Notice this thing, you got to circle, all this work is mine or not. You don't want to copy anyone else's work. Then notice at the very bottom of that first page, that's called a grading rubric. Freshman, sophomore video reports will be graded as such. Paragraph includes the big point of the video and thought or reflection that is 5 sentences, at least 5 sentences long. So if you do a short paragraph every week that includes at least 5 sentences, you will get 100 points. You can see that? But it's got to be thoughtful. Let me give you an idea here, a picture. Let's say you got to watch a 3-minute video titled "Abortion is Bad." You have to write your paragraph. If you say things like, sentence number 1, abortion is bad. Number 2, I thought the video was okay. 3, I didn't like the stick figure they used for the woman. I didn't think that was right. Sentence number 4. My sister came in while I was watching the video and gave me a taco. Number 5. When the video was over, I was happy. You wrote 5 sentences, but they were not thoughtful. That will not work, okay? 5 sentences. The video I watched was "Abortion is Bad." In the video, he points out 3 reasons why abortion is bad. Third sentence. The first reason he pointed out is that abortion is defiling to God. The second reason he pointed out is that abortion is bad for the society. The fifth reason he pointed out is that abortion takes the life of an innocent person. That's 5 sentences. You're done. Piece of cake. This is not going to be hard. Do not make this harder than it needs to be, okay? Next page. If you're a junior or senior, each week, get this, you must watch all of the freshman sophomore videos as well as, or plus, the junior senior videos. Those are the highlight ones. But you only need to pick one to write a report on. So same thing, you got to watch all the videos, the freshman sophomore videos, plus the ones that have been highlighted, the junior senior videos, but you only have to pick one you pick to write your report on. All right? But look at your report, juniors and seniors. Your report has 3 paragraphs. First paragraph is the introduction. This paragraph lets us know the topic of the video without getting into details. For example, abortion is a very emotional subject in our culture. The video XYZ, or abortion is bad, addresses this issue. The video helps Christians know how to answer people who have questions about it. Okay, that's your first paragraph. It's just general. It lets us know, it lets me know what video you looked at, kind of why it's important. Paragraph number 2. This paragraph is going to touch on the big point and the sub-points of the video. It doesn't need to be real long, but you need to let me, in that second paragraph, what was the content of that video? What happened? What was said in there? Third paragraph, just a couple of sentences. This one does not need to be long, but it's what you thought of the video. So it could be something as simple as, I liked the video. I think it gave me a lot to think about. It answered some questions that I had. Whatever. That will work. So this doesn't need to be complex. And you need to do this if you can do this in Teams or in a classroom, I think. And so we'll talk about that in just a second. Third thing that this class will be graded on is you will have a final project, I think May 5th, and we're going to talk to you more about that in the future. So don't worry about it, but just know in your head, May 5th, you got a project to do, a big project. We'll talk about that in time. Next page, your syllabus. Again, your syllabus can be found in Classroom, and these links to your homework assigned for these videos, all you got to do is click on the link and it will take you directly to the video. Now notice, because we're doing this syllabus a little bit different than the way we've done the past ones, so stick with me, stay with me, stay with me. You see week 1, that's today. We're going to go over Introduction to Worldviews, but then look what it says, homework assigned. In the past, it said homework due. Not this semester, it says homework assigned. In other words, you are to be working on this week these videos right here. And if you look at these videos, you'll notice if you are freshman, sophomore, how many videos are you supposed to watch? Well, only 2. 6 minutes and 40 seconds worth of videos, so real quick. And then pick one of these 2, either one you want, and do your report on it. 1 paragraph. If you're a junior, senior, you watch the first 2, and you watch How Can Jesus Be the Only Way? That's 5 extra minutes one. And then you write your 3-paragraph report, type it out. You can do this in Classroom online. That's what I would recommend. And then by the time you come back to class next week, those need to be done. So you can get all that homework done today if you want. Okay, you can go do that today. But before you come next week, it needs to be done. Now, let's just say you don't have access to typing it out. You don't want to type it out. You want to write it out by hand. We will, of course, allow that. Not recommended, but we will allow that. Just write clearly, and then you can hand it in next week. But here's the deal. I would encourage you to type it out and save your responses. Put a little folder on your desktop and save those responses because you might need them in the future. Okay? So that's our syllabus. That's how this thing is going to work. If you have any questions about it, don't worry. Just do the best you can and move forward. Listen, this past week, I've been teaching online for Crown College, and I've been doing that for several years. Now, I've been hired to also teach at Liberty University, but I hadn't done it yet. Well, this week, just a couple of days ago, they said, Dr. Harris, you have been assigned a class, and it starts Monday. Therefore, you've got a couple of, actually, they wanted it all up by Friday. You've got just about 12 hours to set your class up. Now, I wasn't exactly sure what they meant by set your class up. I had the instructions that they gave me, but in all honesty, I looked at them and I still wasn't exactly sure what it meant. So I tried, I did the best I could, and the way I figure it, I'll probably have to teach the class 3 times before I start getting the hang of how it goes and how it works. I just did the best I could. I'll get corrected somewhere along the line, but that's okay. I say that to say this. You may look at these instructions and go, oh man, I don't have a clue what I'm doing. Well, you do. You know much more than you think you do. You're very intelligent. You're very smart. Just do the best you can. And listen, if it's wrong or something, we'll correct you. We might say, listen, next time you do your report, could you not use white crayon? White crayon is so hard to read. Or next time you type out your report, could you not use 27 size font? Because, your report is just, it's tough to read a report that takes 16 pages for one paragraph. So we may try to correct you, but don't worry about that. 3 or 4 weeks into this, you will have it down. Don't worry about it. Stick with me. All right. Let's look to, I think it's page 8. We're going to start in on introduction to worldviews. Real important stuff here. Real significant. Look, it says, what the meaning of life may be? I don't know. I incline to suspect that it has none. Now, there are a lot of folk who have that mindset. Also, the Bible reflects this in some ways. Book of Ecclesiastes, vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity, or all is empty, or all is useless. Sounds like what H.L. Mencken said. Ecclesiastes is a very complex book of the Bible. The author has at his disposal almost unlimited resources of wealth, wisdom, power, and opportunity. He uses them all in his pursuit of the answers to the questions of what is life all about? Why should we desire to continue to live it? He looks at life from a purely human perspective and doesn't like what he finds. Listen, a lot of people in this world are just like the author of Ecclesiastes. They stop. They look at life under heaven or under the sky, as the author would say of Ecclesiastes. So without the understanding of God, they look at life, they try to figure it out, and they come up with some really wild, crazy ideas, very sad ideas, just like the author of Ecclesiastes. Now, these answers to these questions, like why should I continue to live life? What is life all about? Those are referred to as a worldview. There are many worldviews out there, a ton of them. We're going to be looking at some of them in this class. But which is the right one? Now, I know you and I would say, well, Christianity is the right one. Well, yeah, I think it is. But we want to ask some deep questions during this class. We want to think it through. A worldview can be compared to a pair of glasses through which everyone sees the world. I've got my glasses on. I don't need them to see far, but to see up close. If I don't have them, then all the words, I really can't see the words. They're blended together. They're fuzzy. But when I put them on and I look, I can see clearly. People, everybody, has a set of glasses that they put on through which they see this world. What do I mean? Well, let me keep talking. You'll see. What is a worldview? This is an interesting story. This comes from Bill Brown's book, Brown and Phillips, their book, Making Sense of Your World. And one of them went to a prison one point, and they were talking to an inmate. And the inmate said, the goal of life is to survive. You got to keep out of trouble. Party, have a good time, but don't overdo it and hurt somebody. Now, this is Bill Brown. He said, most prison inmates I talk with have no problem articulating their worldview. whatever it might be. Harry was no exception. He told me a story of how the world works and what is important in life. So you survive, I asked. What happens then? You die, he replied matter-of-factly. And after that? Nothing, he looked insistent. When you die, you die. You mean there's no God or life after death? Nope, he responded. Then he looked away and sighed. If there is, I'm in big trouble. Harry had a worldview. Everyone has a worldview of some sort. Determines how they live. A worldview can be defined as an explanation of all of life with an emphasis on how to live it. A worldview is an explanation of all of life with an emphasis on how to live it. Here's some ideas of some worldviews. I just take it a day at a time. I try to stay out of everyone's way and enjoy myself as best as I can. That worldview actually is called hedonism, but you don't have to worry about that right now. But just want to enjoy myself in life, not getting in trouble. Life is hard, then we die. That worldview is called nihilism. Don't worry about that. But it's just very Eeyore type of worldview. There's not a whole lot of purpose. You go through life, you cry a lot, you hurt a lot, then you die. That's all life is. That's a kind of a miserable worldview. He who dies with the most toys wins. That worldview is referred to as materialism. And it's really, my life is purposeful, dependent on how many things I can acquire. He who dies with the most toys wins. I saw a bumper sticker a while back I thought was funny. It says, he who dies with the most toys is still dead. So I kind of liked that, chuckled with that a little bit. Now, I want you to think about Paul's words for a minute. Apostle Paul said, when I was a child, I spoke as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. Now hear me for a second, okay? Because I'm going to say something really general. Generally speaking, when we are children, like Paul's talking about, we think a certain way. Often we think just exactly we believe what people tell us. We believe in Santa Claus when we were little or whatever else. We believe what people tell us. We go through Discovery Land or whatever, and when people tell us things, we believe it. Right? But when you grow up, and they tell us, a developmental psychologist says it starts somewhere around, your 8th grade year, maybe 9th grade year, you begin to change in your thinking, where your thinking grows up. And you're putting away different thoughts, and you're developing your thinking. And so that's what we want to do in this class. We want to develop our thinking so that we're challenging, so that we're understanding the biblical worldview and all of these worldviews that are out there that will compete and that will chase you down. Now, think about this for a second. Remember, we're going to go back to our glasses illustration where everyone's wearing a pair of glasses. Glasses are all tinted. When people wear their specific glasses, they see the world with that color tint. If you are wearing Christian glasses, then everything you see will be tinted Christian. We will explain the universe and life's events from a Christian perspective. We won't understand why others do not see the world as we do. It's so obvious to us. And people will challenge us because we're Christians and you guys just look at the world a certain way. Well, you know what? Everyone does. Because the same is true for those who wear atheist glasses or those who wear Buddhist glasses. They will see the same world you and I do, but it will look radically different to them. Their glasses, their worldview, do not determine reality, nor do they ensure a correct perception, but they determine a person's explanation and interpretation of life and the world. Think about this for a second. You are born, let's just say, with a pair of red tinted glasses on. And so you go through life and everything you see is tinted red. But you know what? You think that's just normal. You think everybody sees life this way because you do. It's just tinted red. That's the way it is. But then one day someone may take your glasses off and put on yellow tinted glasses. And now you're seeing the world all yellow tinted, and you're going, man, what happened here? Or someone may take those out and put on dark sunglasses, and now all the world is dark. Listen, your tint that you have doesn't, what we're saying here, doesn't determine reality. All your tint on your glasses determines is how you see it. There is a reality, though, and that's what we want to get at. We want what is real, not just what is my tint. Does that make sense at all? A worldview is a blueprint for reality, describing my understanding of the world and prescribing how I will live in it. So we're starting to see a pattern with the definitions. Two things: how you see the world, and therefore how I live in it. As we go through this, you'll see more what I mean by that. A worldview answers the big questions of life. Is there a God? Every worldview will ask this question and try to answer it. What's he like if there is one? How did the universe get here? Every worldview will have their answers to that. Of course, the naturalist worldview, we'll talk about that in a little bit and all next week. Well, evolution got it here. The Buddhist way they look at it, transcendental, well, the universe was always here. It didn't have a beginning. Christianity, we believe, theism, the universe was created by our God. Is there a dimension of reality that cannot be seen with the eyes? Of course, the naturalists will say no. They say all that is what you see. If you can't see it, either under a microscope or if it's not some physical thing, it doesn't exist. Who am I? That's a great question. Why am I here? Where am I going? And of course, the naturalists will say you go into the ground, like our friend from prison a while back when we talked. When you die, you die. The Buddhists will say you keep being reincarnated until you reach a certain utopian state. Christianity, all of the theistic religions, we'll talk about those, you'll know what I'm saying, all believe in life after death as far as being with God or not. What's the purpose of life? Is there anything after death? Your answers to these questions will determine the decisions you make. I mean, you're going to make decisions based on your answers to these questions. If you really believe there is a God, that will determine the decisions you make. If you don't believe there's a God, that's going to alter your decisions. Many people don't ask these questions until life throws them a curve. A lot of people are just cruising through life until they get a bad diagnosis from the doctor, until their mom or grandma or spouse or child dies, until they get laid off of work. Something big happens, and then they start asking, what is the purpose of life? Our goal is we want to ask those questions before life throws us a curve. Now, often we absorb the worldview of our culture. But let's ask for a minute, what is culture exactly? Okay, what is our culture? Because your culture, generally speaking, adds a worldview. If you want to know the worldview of our culture today, and there are many worldviews represented in our culture, but there's some predominant ones. Just look at your social media influencers for the most part. Look at your shows on television. Listen to the messages of the music of this generation, and that will tell you the worldview. Now, stay with me with this kind of intense definition, but the central systemization of conceptions of reality to which the members of the culture assent, largely unconsciously, and from which stems their value system. Okay, so this is culture. Culture is a way of doing life. It's just a way of doing life. Culture is the way an anthropologist would view the people of a certain location group. You know what an anthropologist is? An anthropologist will maybe go to a tribe and he will just observe what are their traditions? How do they treat their young? How do they treat the elders? Who's got the power? How do they make decisions? Do they sing? How do they live life? What is their culture? What do they wear? What do they say? What do they do? How do they think? What do they worship? Their culture. And when an anthropologist looks at a people group, that's what he'll see, culture. But a worldview is the way the people in that culture or in that group view the universe. See the difference? Culture is all of our traditions. It's all of our the way we treat people and who's in charge and our democracy or not, all of those things, our music or not. But our worldview is how the people in that culture view the universe. I hope you see that difference. Now, there are 4 elements of a worldview, okay? God. All worldviews, doesn't matter which one, must deal with the God questions. Does God exist? If he doesn't, why are things the way they are? If he does exist, what is he like? Every worldview deals with the God questions. Every worldview will deal with humanity questions. All worldviews must deal with the humanity questions. Who is man? How did he get here? Why does he exist? What happens after he dies? How should he relate to others? What is his purpose? These are humanity questions, and every worldview will answer those questions. Try to. A third element of a worldview is nature. All worldviews must deal with the nature questions. How did everything get here? Why is it here? Is there a realm of reality that cannot be seen with the physical eyes? These are nature questions. The last element of a worldview are the ethics questions. And this is real important because all worldviews must deal with the ethics questions. What is right and what is wrong? How do we determine what is right and what is wrong? Who says? Do we flip a coin? Is it the government? Is it my conscience? Is it just I get to determine what is right and what is wrong? What is conscience? Do I have a moral responsibility? Every worldview has to incorporate those because those are biggies, big questions into their worldview. Now, stay with me, right? Because every worldview, and there's a ton of them, but they will all fit into 3 primary categories. I call these 3 big buckets. And each of these big buckets, all the worldviews of the world will fall into. The first bucket is called naturalism. This is a huge worldview here in the United States. Ultimate reality is the physical matter of the universe. The physical world is all that exists. There is no God. There is no heaven. There is no hell. There is no purpose in life. There is no right or wrong. There is no meaning. This is naturalism. And believe it or not, it's a very popular worldview in our world. Listen to Carl Sagan, who was a naturalist. He says, I would love to believe that when I die, I will live again, that some thinking, feeling, remembering part of me will continue. But as much as I want to believe that, and despite the ancient and worldwide cultural traditions that assert an afterlife, I know of nothing to suggest that it is more than just wishful thinking. Carl Sagan was a naturalist. When you die, it's all done. Nothing else exists. Another category, second category, remember we said there's only 3, is transcendentalism. I'll give you a moment to write that out. Transcendentalism. And listen, in your notes, would you write above that the word pantheism? So that's two words, put it together. Pan, P-A-N, like a frying pan. Pantheism, T-H-E-I-S-M. Pantheism. Sometimes those words can be interchanged. Ultimate reality is spiritual. There is an energy, spirit that is beyond what you can see. God is the impersonal force, the principle or spirit behind the created world. God is not personal. In other words, he's not a person. You can't have a relationship with him. You can't talk to him. He doesn't hang out, doesn't have feelings and emotions, but is the source of all things. Hence, God is in all things. God is all and in all. If you're trying to figure out what exactly that means, think of Star Wars. Remember, Luke Skywalker is trying to get in touch with the Force. The Force is there, and if you're a Jedi, you can connect with the Force. Doesn't guarantee you're going to connect with the Force, but you got to seek it and try to connect with the Force. Well, a transcendentalist perspective is really we're all Jedis. And there is a force out there that we can all connect with. And when we connect with it, that's when we find purpose and meaning and power. Transcendentalism proper is a philosophy that started in the early 19th century that promotes intuitive, spiritual thinking instead of scientific thinking based on material things. We're going to come back to this in time, but listen to me for just a second. The naturalism, the guys who created that with science, they thought about that. Science is God. And they said, when you die, you die. Well, these transcendentalist folk will say, there are times I sense something and I feel something and I just know that there's something else there. It's not just the physical world. And that's what it means by reality is kind of intuitive and spiritual. There's something else there. The third bucket is theism. Ultimate reality is a personal God who created the material and spiritual universe. There's a God that has revealed himself to us, and we can actually know this God. Now, listen to me. Naturalism, we're going to spend some time on all three of these, but naturalism, we're going to hit that next week. Transcendentalism, that is actually the most difficult one for us to get our head around. But we'll be able to an extent, but there's a lot of stuff that falls in that one. And then theism. And Christianity falls in theism. So you're aware of that one already. Look at the three categories, right? There's naturalism, transcendentalism, and theism. Naturalism says all that is material. That's it. Transcendentalism says there is a spiritual side of man. In other words, it's not just physical. There's something else out there or something else in here, and it's beyond just the physical. Theism says ultimate reality is a personal God. And you can look at this. You don't have to memorize these lists, okay? So don't worry about that. But when someone says they're an atheist or a humanist or an existentialist or a hedonist, all of those sub-philosophies fall under naturalism. It's like naturalism is that diamond, and all of these others, and there are many more, are all different facets of naturalism. Meanwhile, transcendentalism, pantheism fits there, animism, polytheism, New Age theologies and religions and faiths, they fit in there as well. Buddhism will fit in there. Hinduism can fit in there. A personal God. You got deism and traditional theism. Stay with me. This is a lot of terms. I got it. Just stay with me, though, okay? You might think you're getting all these confused. That's okay. Just stay with me. Be a sponge. Soak this up, okay? Because deism. What is deism? Now, we talked about this, I think, last year, but if you weren't there, just listen for just a second. A deist believes that God created everything and then he left. We can't know God. There's no such thing as miracles. He didn't send Jesus to die. Jesus was not God. A deist is really a practical atheist. He believes God started the world and then God just left. Okay, that's a deist. Now, traditional theism. Stay with me. Theism, right? There are three in traditional theism. There's Islam. Islam believes in one God. He's a personal God, Allah, one God. And when we die, we will go spend forever with Allah or not. There's Judaism, right? The Jews. That's our Old Testament. They believe there is one God. He's Yahweh. He likewise created everything. And when we die, if we're in the right place, as far as doing the right stuff and everything, we go spend forever with Yahweh. Then there's Christianity. That's us, by the way, if you didn't know. We believe there's one God. He's the God of the Old Testament, Yahweh. But the New Testament is like the second half. There's the first half, the Old Testament. The second half is the New Testament. Now, the Jews won't take the New Testament. They don't accept that. But we know that Christianity, Jesus came. He was God. He died in our place. Now, what is a biblical worldview? Stay with me. We're going to rush these things through, but stay with me. Okay, there are like four elements. First of all, there's two premises. The first premise is that God exists. And I wish we had time in this class. We don't. Maybe down the road, we'll go over how we know God exists. But then also we believe the Bible is his revelation to us about himself and his will. So we believe two things. God exists, and the Bible is his word to us. Okay? That's our premise. Now, 4 elements of a biblical worldview. You get these 4 elements down, they take you all the way from Genesis to Revelation. Easy enough. First element is creation. We believe there is a God and that he's personal, that he created everything that is, physical and spiritual, the entire universe. So we believe with the transcendentalists that there is a spiritual realm, but it's much more than that. We believe with the naturalists that there is a physical realm, but it's much more than that as well. There's a God realm, and he created everything. He created mankind in his image. The naturalists believe we are an accident. The transcendentalists, and we'll talk about that when we get there, but they do not believe we were created in God's image. God gave us a creation mandate. What that means is Adam and Eve in the garden, he said, go. The garden is yours. The world is yours. Take care of it. Protect it. I believe that Christians can be green, but not because we worship the world. The transcendentalists can be green too. We'll talk about that later. And the naturalists may be green because they believe this is all that is. But the Christians are green because God gave us this world. And he told us that we should manage it properly and take care of it. Second element of a biblical worldview is the fall. You know, every single worldview is trying to answer the question, what is the problem in life? You know, they're going to answer a lot of questions, but one of the questions is, what is the problem? The naturalists believe the problem is religion. The Buddhists believe the problem is suffering. But the theists, Christians specifically, believe that the problem is the fall. Mankind is in need of a remedy, of rescue, forgiveness, fixing. You know what happened with the fall. You know what went on. We got in such a mess that we're in today because of what happened with Adam and Eve and the serpent. Because God said don't eat, they chose to eat anyway. And here's the big thing. When Satan came to Eve, she said, you can be like God, Eve. You can determine what's best for you. In other words, you don't have to listen to God. You do you, Eve. Your body, your decision. Yourself, your decision. Identify however you want. Do whatever you want. Choose what's right and wrong for you. That was Satan's message. And so Eve thought that was a good philosophy. She wanted to grab that one. Well, the effects of the fall, broken relationship with God. I think all of mankind is trying to get to God one way or the other. But our works just aren't going to do it. Broken relationship with others. We see this in the garden. But every messed up relationship, which is every relationship, by the way, is messed up because of the fall. Mankind, I believe we can see this in the fall, Genesis chapter 3 as well. Man is messed up with his relationship with himself. Let me ask you, do you ever get in a funk? Do you ever get depressed? Do you ever get confused about life? Despairing, maybe? Wondering, what is it worth it all? Yes, we all do. This is because of the fall. Also, man has a broken relationship with nature. Since the fall, that's where you get tsunamis and earthquakes and tornadoes and killer viruses. Accidents happen now. And I wish we had time to look at Romans 8, but we'll get to that in time. We're not going to look at any illustrations for the fall right now just due to time. But also redemption. The fourth element of the biblical worldview is redemption. The third one is redemption. So you got creation, you got the fall, and then redemption. All worldviews try to answer not what the problem is, and then how do you fix it? How can you fix this broken world? And what the Christian worldview, the biblical worldview, is that it's fixed through Jesus. Jesus came, he died in our place. And if you were to read Romans 8, I alluded to this a minute ago, because he did, one day all of nature will be repaired. But the solution is Christ. Some people will say the solution is education, and I'm all for education, but that's not the solution. Some people will say the solution is financial or economic equity, and we just need to be all on a level playing field financially. That's not the solution. Some will say that the solution is just better health care, or the solution is being a patriarchy, having that done away with. Those are all of those may be abused in some ways, but those are not the solution. Christians say the solution is Christ. That's the only thing that will solve it. So that's the third part of the worldview. Genesis 3, God promised Jesus. God promised to redeem, to fix the world, even if it killed him, and it would. The death and resurrection of Christ is fulfillment in the Gospels. That is redemption. The effects of the redemption is that restored relationship with God and forgiveness and new community, the Spirit to help us. Ultimately, God's goal is to fix all of this world, and it hasn't been completed yet, obviously, but in the death and resurrection of Christ, when we come to trust him, it started. It started in our heart. It started in our mind. The fourth element of a biblical worldview is restoration. This is the book of Revelation. How's it going to end? Yep, there was creation, there was the fall, there was redemption, Christ. And then the last one is restoration, where all of life is restored like the way it was supposed to be in the garden before the fall. No sickness, no tears, no death, no disease, no confusion, no disappointment, no disillusionment, no depression, no bad relationships. I mean, everything will be kicking on all cylinders the way you and I know it's supposed to be. One day it will be there. Restoration. Death is not the end. The biblical worldview says, no, death is not the end. After death, there is hope and there is joy. After death, the world will be put right. Justice will be done. No one gets away with anything. You and I strive for justice. Big push on it today. We know it's the way it should be. Well, ultimately, in the end, nobody gets away with anything. Our home and our citizenship await us in heaven. But for the unbeliever, Christian worldview, biblical worldview, has a description of what will transpire to the unbeliever after death as well. And it's not nearly as good. Listen, this class is going to be a fantastic class, I think. But it's going to be fantastic dependent on your heart. See, not so much the material. I think it's going to be okay material. But if your heart is there, you want to learn, if you want to grow, let me encourage you to do this. Throughout the week, pray and ask God, God, would you teach me? Would you grow me? I want to be like Paul. I want to say that when I was a child, I thought like a child, but I pray you'll grow me and I'll be a man or a woman who's matured in my thinking. I want to love you with my heart and my mind. Listen, that's a prayer God wants to answer. And as we do this, as we develop a biblical worldview, here's my greatest concern and passion, that when you guys move on from youth group, you guys move to the secular university maybe, stats out are saying anywhere between 2/3, that's 66 to 90-something% of you will walk away from Christ. You won't plan to, you won't mean it, but you will encounter all of these other worldviews on the college campus through the world. They'll hit you right square between the eyes. And if you're not prepared, if you're not loving God with your mind, you may fall as a victim, and I don't want that to happen. So be praying this week. If you have any questions about your homework or anything, give us a call. Call the SBC coordinator. freshmen, you've got sophomores, you've got 2 videos you need to check out this week. It's in Classroom, and then go ahead and do your report. Juniors and seniors, you've got 3 videos. Check them all out. Don't wait till the last minute. And let me pray for us as we go. Lord, just want to say thank you for these guys. Thank you for this day. Thank you that you didn't leave us to be the victims of this fallen world. And so many people trying to figure out what's real and true without you. And they're coming up with some wild views. May we not be deceived by them, I pray, Lord. And I pray, God, that we would have a worldview that reflects you to the point where we influence them. Those folk who are looking for truth, we would be influencers. For your kingdom's sake, I pray in Jesus' name. Amen.